Thank you. So I asked Reb Mark to do this beautiful graphic because I don't do graphics very well. I don't have Hebrew letters on my computer. Somebody gave me the way to do it, but it never got on the computer. That's not one of my strengths. But the word Elul this month has 4 letters in Hebrew, the Aleph Lamed, Vav, and Lamed. And it's really an acronym. That's not true of most of the Hebrew names of the months, but it's an acronym with that Aleph, Lamed, Vav, and Lamed. The Aleph, I'm pointing, no, you can't see that I'm pointing to it. The Aleph, the top first letter, is for the word Ani, I. And the second letter, the Lamed, the L, is for Lidodi. And the third, the Vav or U or O, is for the Vidodi. And the final Lamed, the final U, is for Li. Ani, Lidodi, Vidodi, Li. And people, this comes from Shir HaShirim, the beautiful love song that many of us have studied, and particularly we read it during Pesach when everything feels fertily growing on the ground, depending upon where you live, of course. But Ani lidodi vidodi li, most often translated as I am for my beloved, or to my beloved, as my beloved is to me. And for me, that's not quite the right translation. That might be good for Shir HaShirim, but for this month of Elul, I think of it as Ani, I am turning toward. I am reconnecting in relationship to the beloved, that beloved that's accessible to every one of us and in every one of us. I'm reorienting myself to the beloved. And that Vav, Vadodi, and the beloved is reorienting toward me. But the first step in the dance, in this dance, maybe even the dance you do in the mornings, is that orientation from me in that direction, so that I can feel that it's always there, even when I forget that. So we have this amazing practice in Judaism. It doesn't just start on Rosh Hashanah. We don't just plump ourselves down in front of the computer or in face-to-face congregation and say, okay, now is the time for me to think about my life and do Teshuvah now and see who I should ask for forgiveness and who I should forgive myself. It gives us actually a month of reflection. I think I may have talked about this during the Pesach to Shavuot period of time. Reb Zalman used to say that the holidays around the year mark all of the emotions that we probably get to feel in a lifetime, except we may not feel them exactly at the right time for the holiday, but nonetheless, we are given one holiday for each one of the emotions. So Rosh Hashanah and that Elul period before Rosh Hashanah for reflection, and Yom Kippur for the completion of forgiving and asking for forgiveness, and Sukkot for the appreciation and of the abundance that keeps us alive, our connection to the earth, and Hanukkah, the seeing light even in the darkness. And for all of us in our lives, that's so tremendously important. Tu B'Shvat, again, connecting ourselves to that whole beginning of a replanting. Purim, out of the darkness of the short days, at least in this hemisphere, beginning to see it's beginning to lighten the days, a longer, maybe even the weather is better, and we can begin to feel like we are reconnecting with the outdoors. Of course, you in Florida have that all the time, but I don't know, Philadelphia, although it thinks it's a southern city, has not acted like one as long as I've been here most of the time. Then we get to Pesach, and it's that time of the freedom that we feel when we begin taking off the heavy coats, when we have more sunlight, and it gives us a chance to look at the ways we ourselves are constraining ourselves. That it doesn't take an outside Pharaoh, can be the inside Pharaoh. We get to Shavuot and we look at the first of the plantings that have actually come into fruition. And we get to Tisha B'Av and we have a time for mourning. And then right after a time for mourning, we get to a time for loving. A very short time from Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the month of Av, to Tu B'Shvat, or what I would call Ya B'Shvat, 10 and 5, not 9 and 6. Ya B'Shvat, the time in which we feel the godness all around us that shows itself in love. And love is not only romantic love, love is so much more than that. So here we are in Elul, and this is the invitation. We're only in that first week of Elul, and of a period of time when we begin to really look at ourselves. And the question is always the same question each year, but our answers can be quite different. What have what have you, what have we been doing that represents our best selves or the depth of our souls, that enlivens us, that makes us feel like we are living our purpose and doing it in the very best way possible with the maximum of love and kindness, compassion, and the minimum of hurt. And those things we want to keep. I'm going to come back to that word again, that which we want to keep. And what have we been doing? Almost habitually, sometimes without thinking. What have we been doing that doesn't work, that always gets us caught in the same place all the time? And like a lot of people, we don't imagine that I doing the same thing all the time, even though I want a different result, keeps having the same result, which isn't enlivening, which separates us. And when we begin to think about that, we then can make some choices to change that. So we're trying to look at ourselves around what we keep, what's working, and what does it work? What do I mean by what's working? What makes us feel alive? What makes us feel connected? What makes us feel good about ourselves and our best selves showing up? And what do we want to change? What are we doing that's not getting the results of alivening ourselves? What are we doing that keeps separating ourselves from others and from ourselves, from that best self? And though often what we do when that happens is we blame the other, we blame someone else. The question is, what are we doing that leads us into those places that don't feel satisfying to us? Now, I want to talk about those two aspects, that which we decide to keep, to do again, and that which we hope to change and not do again. And it's captured in something that we don't even think is captured in that greeting that we give each other when we say Shana Tova. Shana Tova, a good year. But it means much more than that. Shana has two different meanings. It has the meaning of repetition, to do again, as in the Mishnah Torah, or as we see in the book of Devarim in the Torah, which we're reading now at this point in the year, which feels like it's a summary of everything that's happened since the second book. Moshe is going over it all. It's a review, doing it again. Mishnah Torah, Shana Tova, a year of goodness because we're doing again what was working well in our best intention. And then that word shana, we have that same root of shinui, shinui, to change. So when we greet people and we say Shana Tova, we are really saying to them, may this year be good, because we do again what's working, what's enlivening. And may this year be good because we make a change in what is collapsing us. So that's really the task that we want to do. And it's not so simple. How do we be so honest with ourselves that we can see where we feel most alive and where we feel most deadened? And what are the things we do want to keep? And what are the things that we really do want to do differently in the new year to make it a good one? So I want to tell you a story, a personal story, that happened to me just about a month ago. I guess I was doing Elul a little bit early. I had absolutely the worst day of my life, or one of the worst days of my life. My dear husband decided that we should change our cell phone coverage from one that we've used for a long time that's quite expensive to the one that our daughter and son-in-law had been using quite successfully, and which costs very, very little money. So it seemed like a good idea. And since my husband at this point with macular degeneration can't really see very much, which is for him an unbearable experience as an avid reader and an avid writer, he can't see the keyboard and he can't read books. The good thing is that I read books to him as he used to read poetry to me. I think it's a fair exchange, and we have the pleasure of reading books together and crying together over the books and laughing together over the books and delighting in them. But that's another story. That's why I got the job of making this change. It was easy enough to pay for the new service. That part went very well, very quickly. But then I had to speak to customer care to be able to upload it onto my phone, my cell phone. I spent 7 hours with customer care. Now, I have to tell you, I have been, before I was doing my work as a mashpia, doing spiritual direction work, and before I was living into my rabbinate, I ran a school in New York for new immigrants and refugees. I am quite accustomed, after 37 years, of talking to people who are accented. But when customer care people are accented because they all come from another country, even though their English is good, it is an awful strain for 7 hours not to make any headway. And at the end of 7 hours, nothing had happened. I had not gotten the QR code. I mean, I barely know what a QR code is. I'm from another generation. I kind of know what it is, but this was the essential thing, the QR code. But 7 hours later, I had no QR code, which meant I couldn't access the new company. Unfortunately, the old company had been telling me for about a week that I was going to lose my cell phone capacity if I didn't get a QR code. Oh no, they said I needed an eSIM card, an eSIM card. Well, the only way I could get an eSIM card was from a QR code. So at the same time that I couldn't after 7 hours, and you can see I tore my hair out because of it. It was so frustrating, completely frustrating. Um, it wasn't just the wasting of the time, and I have very little time to waste. But at the same time, I couldn't get the QR code to get the eSIM in my phone. This is language I don't speak very well, eSIM and QR. I lost my old phone, that is the service on the old company. And I went to bed that night feeling completely I cannot tell you how terrible I felt. Now, there's a little bit more of a story to this. I must tell you that I did not have a loving relationship with my cell phone. I really hated it. I have felt shackled by it. I have felt like I am imprisoned by it. So I really kept hating it. But the moment I didn't have it, when I had no cell phone service, couldn't make phone calls, couldn't receive phone calls, couldn't access my all the people who were in my contact list, which means not only their phone numbers and their email addresses, but even sometimes the name of the person at that place who I didn't really remember from that place. So I relied on the contacts. And not only that, I have something like 50 appointments in the 5-month period of this semester that just started this week in the Olive Ordination program, about 50 appointments that I've made with 10 different people who are a good part, but not my whole part, of my spiritual direction work. And I couldn't get any of my commitments. And this is a calendar that was not only my calendar, but also Arthur's calendar, because years ago we decided to have a joint calendar. So if we didn't step on each other's toes, I knew what he was doing when, he knew what I was doing when. And if he needed me to drive him someplace, because thank God he stopped driving when I retired from my first job. And I couldn't, it was such a miracle that he stopped driving when he did. It saved his life and my life. We had to know when our appointments were. And I recognized for the first time that this thing that I hated, I was totally reliant on, dependent on, and in fact, I could have appreciated and loved it instead of hating it. So I went in about a 24-hour period from complete desolation, and I mean it in a very serious way. The next morning when I woke up and I still did not have any use of my phone, I felt like I had lost all of my executive functioning. And I was totally shattered. And at some point, and it took, thank God, the work of my son-in-law, who patiently spent about 3 hours with me, getting the QR code that I needed in order to install the eSIM that was necessary to get the phone working. And when the phone was working at the end of 48 hours, I felt just so much gratitude. So what that led to for me was, how can I, this is my story, I don't know if it's your story, how can I appreciate and have gratitude for something before I lose it? What are the things that I am so unconscious of in the roles that they play in my life, or the people in my life, that I take for granted? I barely even think about it. The breath itself. How can I move from being blind to seeing the importance and my interdependence with so much in life, the things we think are inanimate and the very animated parts of our lives? So that's a piece of my work in the month of Elul this year. And I hope work that will carry over in the year that comes. Before things get lost, before I lose things, how can I appreciate them and their value? Before I lose people, and I understood that in a lot of ways, this whole loss of phone it was a metaphor for the loss of other things and for people. How can I appreciate and love the things I'm so very interrelated with before I lose them and not after I lose them? So I'm going to ask you in just another couple of minutes to go into small groups of 3, and to each of you take up to 5 minutes to speak from your heart about perhaps something of yours. It doesn't have to be loss and gratitude, but something of yours that you are feeling you need to shift a relationship with in order to be more awake. I know that's a dirty word in America, in this country at this moment, but you'll excuse me. Who knew that curses were okay, but other words were dirty? Very strange, very strange. So the question I'm asking you to think about for yourselves is, what is it you want to keep, perhaps, because it's really precious? And what is it that you want to change because it's been, it's not gotten you the connection, the closeness, the sense of the richness of who you are and the relationship that you want with other people, and even, as I told you my story, with other things. Who would have thought you had to think of things in their preciousness, not just people? And at the end of the 15 minutes, we'll come back together, and if something occurs to you that you would want to share, and you can't in sharing, you probably know the rules, but in sharing, you can't talk about what somebody else said in your group, but you can, of course, share what you say in your group, with no pressure on having to say, but what all of this has possibly stirred up in you. And perhaps don't do it while you're driving. But I hope that that will be a part of a practice that will go on through this month, as each of us is invited to really examine the days that we feel disconnected, the days that we feel well used, the days that we feel discouraged and frustrated, the days that we feel like something profound has been exchanged in some way. So have a
So
good.
before we take off into breakthrough rooms, as always, it's going to be a little different tonight since you're going into rooms with 3. If you don't want to go to a breakthrough room, just don't accept the invitation. It's going to take me another minute to juggle everyone so that, plus Mary Rita, I don't see you popping up yet.
No, she's there. I see her. I see her.
No, no,
You
you
won't see
see,
her in the breakthrough room list because she came after you opened it. So you'll have to
that's
add
right.
her in afterwards.
Okay, after everybody goes to breakthrough rooms, I can add her.
Yeah. So just
Okay.
figure out in your head where you're going to put her, and then
Okay, so
after
if
they
you're
go,
not going
she
to go
can
to
go.
break the rooms, just don't accept the invitation, and I'll put you in your own room eventually, and I'll rejuggle things within the first 60, hopefully 90
And while
seconds.
Reb Mark is doing that, I'm going to sing a chant of Shepherds. If you know it, come and sing with me. Ani lidodi vidodi. Ani lidodi vidodi li. 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 Ani lidodi vidodi li.
Welcome back, everyone. Turning things back over to you, Reb Phyllis.
So whether you were speaking to yourself or speaking with some very good listeners, I hope that you found some things that really were worth your attending to. We all know when we have had an experience that feels like we're fully present, we're fully seen, we're fully engaged. Reb Mark used the word in our partnership. We are living our deployment, whatever that means. And we know as well when somehow that's not the way it feels. And one of the great experiences for me about being in my 80s now is I have a strong sense of what's for me and what's not for me. And that is such a profound knowing, because there's so much that's important and precious that it's not all for me to do. So being able to use my time at things I know are mine, that feel so connected, so precious, that's where I want to be able to use myself. And some of that came out of the COVID years, because we were much more, many of us, at home and alone. And so we began to find the ways to make those connections that were the most precious. And I think that just has really stayed with me. Or maybe it came in the 80s, I don't know. So I want to open it up to see what, if there was something from your own thinking or the beginning of the process or process you're already in that you'd be willing to share, so that we can all learn from one another. And of course, you'll do that, I guess, the traditional way you can, in the React part on the computer, you raise hand, or otherwise you could just raise your hand. We old-fashioned ones just know how to do this. And hi.
Hi. Um, yeah, it's for me, there's so many little things that I need, bad habits and things that happen that I need to let go of. What's less common is for me to think of the things that I'm good at that I want to keep.
Mm.
And so, for example, I think very often I do like to ask questions, and I think some of them, at least, Mark might disagree, are good questions. The and Also I like to things to be organized, A and then B and then C and D. And uh and otherwise I get lost, confused, and then I can't, whatever. And so I do like the fact that I do that. I also make up that others might have the same questions and the same way of thinking, and that I'm doing a service by voicing these and bringing it up and maybe getting things clearer. Um, so for that sort of thing, I have a little bit of sense of pride and I want to keep doing that. Um, and then the things that I am not good at, or that it bother me and others that are bad habits. One of them being impatience, which a lot of people have. My way of expressing it is I waste my own time quite well, thank you. I don't need somebody else to waste my time for me. Um, and so I'll leave it at that. I know these are supposed to be shorter comments, but that's something that every year at Tashlich I try to get rid of. And for some reason, I still have to keep doing it.
So Shamati, Dan, thank you.
About you, yeah.
Just, I was, as what arose in my head as you were speaking is this iconic story about Zalman. Somebody comes to him and says, Reb Zalman, you're such a wise man. How did you get to be so wise? Reb Zalman's eyes sparkle and he says, experience. And the person says, oh, Reb Zalman, good experience. And Reb Zalman smiles and he says, no, bad experience. So it's the point at which I think we look gently at ourselves and our mistakes. And I love that word. I see us as the directors of the film about our own lives. We want another take on that. We didn't like that first one. And sometimes it takes 20 takes before it becomes that great movie. So why should we be less, why should we expect we're going to be a better director or filmmaker than somebody else? Uh, but how do we bring that gentleness to ourselves about the things that aren't working as well as they are? And then it becomes a little bit easier to see them because we're not angry at ourselves for doing those things, whatever they are. And each of us does have habits that we're even unconscious about. But if they're not giving us joy and they're not bringing joy in our relationships to others, that's the place where it goes. Anyway, it looks like many of you have heard that story before. It's one of my favorite stories.
Can I add one little thing though? You said without being angry at myself. Of course I do, and I beat myself up and all this. But as I was saying in the breakthrough group, adding humor to laugh at myself. There I go again, or whatever, or this didn't work out, and rather than beating myself up, laugh about it and say, yeah, okay, you know, um, humor is a good way for me at least to let go of beating myself up.
So there you are. And that's very helpful for all of us, I think. Thank you. Judy, thank you.
Thank you for this interesting, timely topic. So I'm in the process of trying to clean out my office after 30 years at the FDA that I'm wrapping up this week. And I had a pile of stuff, and under it was this enormous dictionary, one of those big unabridged dictionaries that must weigh like 10 pounds or more. And it was a gift 25 years ago from somebody who had some import in my life at one time, and I thought might be important again, and hasn't turned out that way. And so the idea of keeping and leaving behind, there's a conference room across the hall from my office that with shelves that people leave books behind on. And I've been mulling this for the last day of whether it's time to leave this weighty dictionary behind. And this is just really timely because I've been chewing on this and thinking about what to embrace going forward and what to leave behind. And that dictionary is such a metaphor, actually, for something very weighty to leave behind. So thank you.
And thank you, the chance to have actually a physical manifestation that you can do it with. Maybe that can make it easier for all of us to do something that isn't physical, that we want to leave behind. So that's such a fine story, very helpful. And if you can do it in your office, I hope you'll come and help me do it in my office.
Thank you.
Shamati. Deborah.
Well, thank you for saying that, Judy, because when I didn't say this in my room, what I basically said is I just made a bunch of changes since Smincha Week in Kala, and I'm just really happy, and I'm really happy being happy, and I'm going to keep that. But on the giveaway side, I have now either here, I'm at my cottage, or at home, I've taken a new approach to my stuff in one way. And that is that if I look at something and I go, oh, that's from, and like I cannot get that story out of my head. I don't care how nice it is. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care anymore about it. It's going to Goodwill because I'm tired of having those hooks that always grab me and take me back to things that I don't even need to think about. I could just, their relationships or situations or whatever, I don't want them anymore. And so here I have a whole pile of stuff sitting there. This is a very small space, and it's amazing how much stuff I have that I've got to get rid of tomorrow because they weren't open today. I've been saving it up. That somebody else can use, and they'll be very happy with it, and I will not have to look at it again and go, oh yeah, oh yeah. That just takes up so much space in my head. So
Well,
Tabarti.
Shamati, and just hearing you makes me think about it was the sound that you made. And I think probably all of us have a sound that we make either out loud or inside of us that we could recognize is yes, and something that we can recognize as mm, 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 mm. Years ago, I had a very complicated decision to make. I had been offered a terrific sounding job. Do I go or do I stay in the school that I had created in New York City? And I couldn't for the life of me make up my mind which one was the yes and which one was no. And I was meeting with my spiritual director, and I said to her, I know what yes feels like inside of me. Yes it's just such an enthusiastic that I don't even have to think about it again. I thought maybe the reason I'm not getting an answer is because no is much more subtle now. It doesn't make any sound. Maybe no sound is no. I know what yes is, but I didn't know what no was. The next day I went in and I made a phone call to the person who had offered me the position. And I said, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to stay in the school that I had created. I hung up the phone, and 5 minutes later, I got a phone call from a man I didn't know. And he told me that a woman who had been a donor to my school over the last 10 years, she'd given $50,000 each year for 10 years, and called me twice a year, once when she was going to the Cape for the summer, and once when she came home from the Cape to find out how everything was. He told me that during the summer when I was at Eilat Chaim, the Jewish Renewal Spiritual Retreat Center that used to be in Accord, New York, and now is kind of hidden at Isabella Friedman. I spent the summers at Isabella Free at Eilat Chaim, and I didn't read the New York Times because I had days that started at 6 in the morning and ended at 10 at night, and they were so full of life that who read the newspaper? I had no time and energy for the newspaper, and I had missed in the New York Times that this wonderful woman who had given money to my school for new immigrants and refugees because she and her husband had been refugees from um, the Netherlands during World War II. She had died right after her 90th birthday, and I hadn't known it. And the man who was calling me was the executor of her will. And he said, Mrs. Said to me, after I give away the money to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City and to this hospital in New York City and that hospital, if there's anything left, he should call me. So he asked me about the school that I had created in 1979. And at the end of a half an hour or an hour that we talked together, he said to me, um, would $1 million do? And I thought to myself, oh my God, it is so important for us to know what's a yes in our lives and what's a no. And although I couldn't hear the no, that was good enough because I knew I could hear the yes. And could you imagine if I had said yes to the other job on the just before this offer came? And the school is still alive now. I have retired. It's almost 11 years. I'm retiring myself now as a spiritual director, which I think is my real deployment. And I'm very happy for that. But I'm so grateful that the school survived. And I hope in this terrible political time, it continues to survive in New York City. New York is such a nexus point for people from all over the world. We worked with people from 75 different countries speaking 35 different languages. They didn't all speak 35 different languages. Each of them spoke a couple or one, but they came together like the Israeli Ulpan, which is one of the good things from Israel at this point, that melding of people into a new possible life for themselves. That's what we were trying to do in New York City with people from all over the world. So knowing Devorah and knowing Judy, what goes and what stays, what's yes in our lives and what's no in our lives is the very question I was asking tonight. So I'm so glad to have heard those stories.
Ah, that's my sound.
It's a lovely sound.
It's a sound of gratitude for the gift of you, Rev Phyllis. It's the sound of the gift of gratitude that I have for this beloved community that I am so honored to be Rebbe for, spiritual guide, a community in which the collective wisdom far outweighs anything I have ever or will ever
Yes,
know.
that's right.
So I thank you all for showing up and being yet part again of another special offering from you, Rev Phyllis. Signed you up for next year for everything. Maybe we can get you to come to Shavua Leil Tikkun for one of our storytelling nights.
Oh, yeah.
That is also a special night. So if you have anything else to add as a Khatima, I'd like to finish with my musical setting for Psalm 27, verse 4.
Okay, so let me just say that I want to bless us all, bless all of us, that we have clear thinking so that we do know what is ours and what is not, what is our yeses and what is our nos, what is worth keeping, a shana tova, and what is worth not holding on to, a shinui. of a Shana Tova. And let it be truly a healthy and loving and connected year. And I'm so grateful to be back here with you. I knew this was something I wanted to do again because I had had such a wonderful experience with the community the first time. So thank you.
Amen. Amen. Ah, lai, lai, da, lai, lai, da, lai. Yai, lai, la, lai, lai, yai, lai, yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, da, 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 yai, lai, da, lai, 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 lai. Achat sha'alti mi'ed Adonai Ota, Ota, Avakesh. One thing I ask of you, my holy friend, to sit in your presence all the days of my life. Shifty Veved Adonai, Kol Yemei Chayai, Shifty Veved Adonai, Kol Yemei Chayai, to sit in your presence all the days of my life, to sit in your presence all the days of my life. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, la, lai, lai, la, lai. You know the words, sing it with me. Yai, lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, lai. Yai, la, 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 lai. Yai, lai, di, di, lai, lai, yai, di, lai. Laila Tov, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis.
Toda rabba. Love to you.
Thank you.
Shana Tov.